In today's episode, we're going to learn how players progress when you play the matches versus skipping the matches, and how they turn out after a whole year of training. Enjoy. Hey guys, so I've explored this topic a lot. The topic's really about training and how a player progresses if you skip matches versus playing them or coaching them. Now, my understanding is playing and coaching is basically the same. They're in the physical match. It's just if you coach, you don't control the players, but you still control the strategy, the subs, everything else. When you play it, of course, you control everything. But when you skip matches, do you actually get the same amount of experience as if you played or coached the game? That's what I tried to find out. Now, this was actually in a quest to understand what the best way to train a player was. But to do that, I needed to project forward in the future and understand how a player performed, progressed, and how different training styles influence that player's progression. So that's what we did. So every player that you see that I've trained in this video plays with the same exact team with the same exact tactics. So as a test, this should be very fair across all of the different training methods or situations that you see. So what I did first was I went and set the players to focus training. So there are two players that I'm looking at here, Jeremy and Martinelli. And what you see is I went in and set both of them to focus training, and then I put all of the focus on speed. And what I was trying to do here is really show you what happens when you focus on a specific skill set and how that's impacted by the skipping versus the coaching or playing. And the idea here was the focus training is going to give you the largest amount of skill points, and so we should see the largest discrepancy between the skipped games versus the coached games. So let's get into the results. So as an overview, I've done another video around player progression, and what I found out in that video was basically very similar to the information I found out during this test, minus a couple things. So on the surface, the two training methods are actually pretty similar. The major difference between the two, in this example for Martinelli, is that in one, you have a speed rating of 91 and an acceleration rating of 90, and in the other, you have a speed rating of 91 and an acceleration of 89. So what you see is a minor drop-off between played/coached matches and skip matches. So what this tells us is basically you can absolutely skip matches and get almost the same level of training on a player without having to play every single game. This helps a lot if you have a football manager style approach where you're going to play the really critical games, but you also are going to skip some games just because they're not as important. Now, where this gets really interesting is when you look at the offensive and defensive tactic screens. This is where I saw the largest amount of impact. What you see here is that when we skipped matches, we didn't really make any progress at all on the offensive and defensive tactics. So what this does mean is that if you're going to skip games, you're not going to get any improvement in the way that the player understands how to play in your system. So although the training results are going to be very similar between skip games and played games, the results for the understanding of your tactics, the chemistry of your team, are going to be very different between skipped and played games. I'll show you the same effects with Jeremy. Here what we see is a very similar pattern. Now with Martinelli, in both cases, the player ended up as a 78 rated player. However, in Jeremy's case, for the coach matches, he ended up as a 75 rated player, and for the skip matches, he ended up as a 74 rated player. However, when you look at his skills, you can see that that's probably driven by one skill point in acceleration. In the coach matches, he has 89 acceleration, and in the skip matches, he has 88 acceleration. And so the difference is still very minimal in his ability to perform. So as you can see, you can skip matches with the safety of knowing that if you just want to progress the player, you can effectively do that without playing the game. The one caveat to this is both of these players played as a starter in my formation. I do believe there's a difference if the player's on your bench versus starting. So consider that into any player progression calculation or expectation that you have on player growth. Now lastly, I did go and redo all of these tests, placing the player to the training style that best suited their existing playing style. So when I did this, I was able to see an increase in the overall player's rating. Martinelli was still a 78. Jeremy came out to a 76. However, if you look at the abilities between Advanced Striker and the two other focused options, I think you can very clearly see where the core difference in skill set came from. So when you train them with Advanced Striker, the skills are just more evenly evenly spread. However, the key things that I was focused on, which in this case was speed, came out to be less in both scenarios. So you can see that in Martinelli, where I have 91 speed in skip games, 91 speed in coach games, but only 90 speed in advanced striker, versus the focus training in the other two scenarios. And then there are 89s across the board for acceleration. However, you can see on the progress bar that even in the skip games, it's still about a fifth of the way ahead. And when we look at Jeremy, it's a very similar scenario. Again, the skills are more evenly spread out, but there are no major jumps in skill. The core difference, again, is I've got an extra point in speed and acceleration on my coach games, and I have an extra point in speed specifically in my skip games. So what this really means is the training that you choose, you should make that decision based on which skills and abilities you need earliest for your player to make him feel better, effective, and usable within the games that you're going to play. Because this is about getting a player to the level that you want to play with them. Taking a young player, boosting them up so that you can use them as your number one in whatever position they play. That's why I'm using the focus training, but you can really use whatever training you're comfortable with. But again, it's all about making sure that the player gets the skills in the specific place that are going to make them right for your style and your team and the way you want to play the game. So good luck choosing your training style. Now you can skip games knowing that it's not going to hurt you and that you're going to get around the same amount of points. Let me know how it goes in the comments. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, I'm new to YouTube, so if you like the content, please give me a like. If you like the topics, please subscribe, and always leave a comment if you can. Thanks, guys.